Welcome to the weekly I-League Roundup show. We once again have with us Alvito, former Indian footballer. Welcome to the show. We have a lot to discuss this week. We'll get to that. But before that, a word from you.
I-League is getting interesting. That's what I feel because, although many people must be watching the Indian Super League, but then I think the way I-League matches have been played, the teams have been getting some upsets. There's been a big margin results for either teams. I think this is, for me, one of the best I-Leagues.
Indeed, lots of goals is what we have seen. We'll discuss some upsets and some strange performances as well. And one of those strange performances has come from Srinidhi, who were expected to be on top. But before going to all that, we'll talk about one special goal which we have witnessed this week. That is from Gokulam's Ignacio Abelardo, a long ranger from right the center line mark.
I just watched that goal, and that was one of the best goals I feel in Indian football. I mean, obviously the way he scored it from the, I think you need the presence of mind, and that's what I exactly did. He saw the goalkeeper coming out of the position and he just tried to lob the ball in. I remember when I used to play, we scored a goal from the center line. Mike Okoro did that when we played against Churchill Brothers in Goa. And this was to me as one of the best goals. Scoring those goals, you need good presence of mind, and I think that's what Abelardo has done it. Superb goal.
And that goal has given us a few more talking points as well. The goal he scored is against Arindam Bhattacharya, keeper, such experience. Antonio Lopez Abbas trusting in him. He has performed as well. It's not like he hasn't done well, but what has gone wrong?
I think there's something wrong with the team because, the way they've conceded goals, 6 goals against Gokulam, that was to me one of the biggest margin. Never expected that result, although there's a 8 goals margin which took place between Shillong Lajong and I think Rajasthan United. But then this again, like 6 goals, and then against experienced coach in Antonio Abbas, experienced players like Narayan Das, Arindam Bhattacharya, Edmund Ralindika. I think to me this is the biggest upset in this year's I-League.
Indeed, but before going to other topics, everyone is looking forward to Interkashi. They were looking forward to Antonio Lopez Abbas, but now suddenly they're on the back foot. What can they do from here, and what do you think as a team is going wrong? 6 goals, 1 match is fine, but then they conceded 2 against ties, 3 against ties all rather, and they have been losing out points. They lost to Namdhari as well. Now they look like a side who are struggling to get back in form.
See, Vaswar, one thing we need to understand is football is not about just the names. Sometimes, the main names matter when you have got good young players, but then experience also counts. But then I think players like Narayan, players like Arindam, they have crossed their prime time, which they have given a lot to the country and to the clubs as well. But then now I feel it's the time for the youngsters to step in. Johnny Kauku also have been started off well. We always say, like, when you play the I-League, it's much tougher competition rather than the ISL. Like, when we are in our school days, I feel the class 10th was an easy way to get passed out, but rather if you pass that class 9th was always a difficult task sort of. So I think in football also it's same. Getting promoted from the I-League to Indian Super League, it's always going to be a difficult task, and that's the reason why you can't just predict who's going to win the I-League. And that's the reason why you see a lot of teams, you can't really think which team is going to be the champion this year. Namdhari is doing good, Churchill is doing good. Suddenly Dempo's downfall has started. But then this is what the beauty of I-League is all about.
Indeed so, and Interkashi had a few injury concerns as well. You mentioned Johnny Kauko, he was missing a few matches. Tommy Berlanga missed a few matches. But apart from that, you talked about the league table and promotion to the Indian Super League. Who will be getting promoted next year? We still do not know. And guess who is on top amongst all the discussions? Churchill Brothers, Tempo, Interkashi. It's Namdhari out of nowhere. They were not in the discussions, but they have drawn themselves into that.
Yes, and I think the reason why they are at the top of the table, last couple of matches, they have been outstanding. They've scored a lot of goals. The biggest upset was when they beat Shillong Lajong, if I'm not wrong, by 5 goals. That was the biggest margin. And then also, the way they have been playing good football. Harpreet Singh, an experienced lad who played good football during his playing days. Last year he took the charge of the team, but this year the way they have been playing is really fantastic. Churchill, we all expected to be one of the front runners, to be the champions, along with Interkashi and Rajasthan, or maybe even Dempos. But the way Namdhari has started, if things don't really go wrong with them, they are going to be definitely the champions this season, the way they are playing. But then we always talk about who can finish the last line. There's a lot of more matches to go. Injuries, suspensions will come in action. So that's where the substitute, the bench strength, who has got the best bench strength, that is what going to be the key factor for any of these teams.
And that will be very, very interesting to find out if Namdhari can hold on. They have beaten the top 5 teams before getting into this match week, the previous match week rather. And they were at second position. They have beaten Interkashi, they have beaten Churchill Brothers, they have beaten Gokulam and then Shillong Lachong. And the equation has suddenly changed.
Yeah, and I think if you see at their standings, I mean the reason why they are at the top of the table, they have beaten Churchill, who was at the top position, they have beaten the 3rd best team, they have beaten the 4th best team, they have beaten the 5th best team. So that means they have already played against all the top teams who are in the top bracket, that is the top 6 teams. But then, as I said, keeping that consistency is going to be very difficult. Now the teams are going to come prepared for Namdhari. They know the strength and the weakness of Namdhari. So Namdhari, all they need to do is be patient, especially when they go to play the away matches. And at the home, it's always difficult to defeat them. But then, having said so, what I said, injuries, suspensions will come into action. But then the players who are on the bench, they need to be ready for the coach.
Indeed, they need to be ready. Kletson de Gaulle has been performing extremely well for Namdhari, but one team who hasn't been performing as per expectations is Srinidhi Deccan. We have seen in the last 2 seasons, since their start in the I-League journey, they have never been at the bottom half of the table. They finished 2nd in consecutive editions, and this time they are right at the bottom, just 2 teams or 3 teams below them. And is there still a possible turnaround, and what has gone wrong? They have even announced that they are no more in terms with their coach.
Yeah, this is what I was just going through some of the social medias, like, I think wherein they might appoint a new coach, somebody by name like Carlos. So, sometimes a change in coach could also bring the change in performance of the team. So that's the reason why the management might have thought to bring in a new coach, but might be a bit late for them, because the teams that are, getting the rhythm back, like Gokulam or Namdhari, they're really playing very good football. But Srinidhi Deccan, obviously, before the start of this tournament, I really felt they would be one of the contenders to win the I-League this season. But somehow things have not gone right. Maybe the foreigners have come in late, maybe the team selection was not good, or maybe the coach's formation was difficult for the players to understand. So that's the reason why sometimes the team, they fail to perform on the field. And that could be one reason. But then we always want to see Srinidhi in the top bracket of the league.
Does sometimes having too many options, too many good talents spoil the deal? Because Srinidhi had so many players, some strikers like William Oliveira and David Kastner had over 10 contributions last season. Roma Villa had 10 goal contributions last season. A few champions in their like Brandon and Abhishek Ambekar, all of them still not performing.
But this is what I said, sometimes it's about it doesn't matter with the names. What matters is the performance of the team. It's the time for the youngsters to step in. You see a lot of teams who are doing well are without big names. Namdhari doesn't have big names in the squad, whether it's Indian players or the foreign players. But then this is what it is. Abhishek Ambedkar or Brendan, obviously they are good players, but maybe they have crossed their prime time. And it's somebody else who has to step in and give their best for the team. But then maybe the team doesn't have that replacement to replace these 2 guys and get somebody else. But then if we look just about the names, football is not just about the names. It's about the performance. It's about having as a team on the field, and that is what gives you good results.
Rightly mentioned. Before getting to the next discussion, just a short question. After one match week, after the next match week, we'll step into the second round, the away fixtures, and all those equations will change. Do you think Srinidhi still have a chance?
See, there's no team who can say that we don't have a chance. As we have seen, the start was something which the top teams were really doing well. And that's the reason why they were in the top bracket. But the teams who have been struggling, especially like Delhi FC, then suddenly they picked up that form after the break. But then suddenly again they're going down. But then this league, we call it as an interesting league, is because you can't really underestimate any team. The team that is on the bottom of the table could also give a tough fight for any of the team which is in the top position. So this is why we all love to watch the I-League. This is why there's a lot of goals coming in the I-League. It's an open tournament. Any team can challenge any team. So, and that's the beauty of this game. So I think still there's chance for Srinidhi Deccan, and so does to all the teams. It's not about one team can think, or Namdhari or Churchill can think they have got they have almost reached to the top. If they feel that they are almost the champion, then they are wrong. Teams who are there at the bottom half, they are also fighting for the championship.
Indeed, one such example, Sporting Club Bengaluru beat this Deccan side, and the team at the 8th and 9th can climb to the top 4 in the next match week with a win or 2, and everything can happen in the league. But before we end, we'll get to the point about Real Kashmir. They were not too much in the groove at the starting stages. As you mentioned, everything is changing. Every match week, something new is what we are seeing. Suddenly, they have back-to-back wins at home. They're looking strong, and one or two players to really watch out for. Ramsanga, their central defensive midfielder, scored a stunner in the last game and is doing his duties well. And the Brazilian Paulo Cesar suddenly getting into the groove and scoring the goals.
See, this is what brings to the team. I mean, Ramsanga and the Brazilian striker. They are the two players who have been really performing well for Real Kashmir. And as we always spoke about this team, especially in Srinagar, it's always difficult to beat them or to play against them. The climates are difficult to accustom, and that is the reason why in the last match we saw Dempo struggling a lot. They could have lost the game by a big margin, but then still 3 points is what matters to Ishfaq Ahmed and his team, and that is what exactly he's been doing. Before this last 2 matches, the team's performance was not so good, but last 2 matches they're back on track, on the winning track, and they are definitely going to be one of the teams to be the champions, which they were in fact in the race, but then somehow things have not gone right. But with the inclusion of this Brazilian striker, they might be a danger team for any of the opponents.
Getting to another point, Alvito, what do you think is the situation amongst the Indian players and the foreigners? That is a discussion we have seen amongst the fans, Indian players and foreigners. Do you think the Indian players are really stepping up, or the foreigners are stealing the show right now?
No, if you ask me this, I think the Indians are really doing well, the way they have been performing. There are a lot of goal scorers, there are a lot of players who you need to keep an eye on them, one for the future. So there's a lot of players that we can talk about, but one player definitely is Rinzwala, who plays for Aizawl FC. Aizawl FC playing with all the Indian squad. I think they might have lost a couple of matches, but the good thing about this team is they've been scoring a lot of goals. They might have lost one of the key matches against one of the team. I don't remember if it was against Kokulam.
It was Trinity
that they lost by 4 goals to 3. But then the way they made a comeback, they won against Delhi FC when the match was 2-2, and then suddenly from there they scored 2 more goals. And I think Rinzwala scored a hat-trick in that match. So far he has scored 7 goals. Last year he scored 15 goals. I think this is the guy that really you need to keep an eye on.
So there are a few players we need to watch out for, of course. There might very well be so much to discuss for, but so little time. Of course, we'll again get back with you with the discussions as well. A lot of goals, a lot of thrilling action is happening. 17 goals in one match week, one match day rather, and a lot is happening. And we will find out what happens in the upcoming week as well. Stay tuned, keep watching the I-League at SSEN.